Infineon Creative Universe presents The Chronicles of Elara Quinn, Season 2, Episode 6, The Night Reclaims. Chapter 1, Scars That Hold. Fort Null had changed. Once a ruin consumed by ether corruption, now it stood tall, reinforced with golden latticework and defensive towers pulsing with clean Synthari energy. The Knights of Infineon had restored it, brick by brick, bolt by bolt. But beneath its polished armor, the memory of the siege still lingered in every corridor. CryptoKnight stood at the command overlook, gazing across the outer perimeter. Patrols moved with precision. Shields held firm. But his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't shake the echo. Even Evelyn failed. Even Elara will break. I've seen it. Thalor's final words hadn't died with him. They had woven themselves into the mesh. Footsteps approached. Orion. The forge is real, Orion said. Old Synthari core, buried deep in the Dustlands. It's starting to pulse again. Ether surges, small anomalies. And one echo. CryptoKnight turned slightly. The girl. She's been tracking it for days. As if summoned, Elara arrived moments later, jacket half-zipped, goggles slung around her neck, a restless fire in her step. Her voice was tight. It's not just noise. I picked up a signature inside the mesh spike. Something Evelyn left behind. Or maybe part of her. CryptoKnight studied her for a long moment. She was different now. Harder. Quieter. Whatever she'd lost in the battle for Infineon had been replaced with relentless purpose. You believe she's alive? He asked. I believe she's still trying to reach me, Elara said. I don't know what's left of her, but I can feel it. And that forge, it's drawing her echoes in. Orion handed over a holomap, projecting a shimmering outline of the Dustlands, fractured terrain, radiation storms, and deep mesh fractures threading through the bedrock like scars. If we're going, Orion said, we go fast. That region isn't stable. And if the curve's interested too. CryptoKnight nodded once. Prepare the launch team. We leave at dusk. Chapter 2, The Forgotten Forge. The Dustlands were a dead zone. Once a thriving network of Synthari relay stations and ether refinement hubs, now the land was a maze of scorched earth and collapsed circuitry, haunted by silence and scattered static. Shattered pylons jutted from the cracked terrain like broken ribs. The sky was stained with a constant amber haze, lit by flares of atmospheric instability. Their dropship skimmed just above the surface, silent except for the occasional pulse of the anti-grav stabilizers. Inside the hold, Elara stared at her terminal, decrypting the incoming pulses from the forge. Each wave was stronger than the last. Signal integrity rising. Frequency shift. It's resonating with my implant now. What does that mean? Orion asked. It means it's not just a location anymore. It's a lure. CryptoKnight stood beside her, arms crossed. A trap? Maybe. But Evelyn's voice is in there, fragmented, buried. She looked up. If the curve corrupted the forge, her memory could be bleeding through. Orion scanned the terrain as they descended. There's something else, he said. Mesh fractures are deeper than expected. The whole zone is unstable. If something's burrowing under it, something like... CryptoKnight interrupted. We finish this fast. The ship landed on a wide, sloping ridge overlooking a chasm of twisted architecture, half machine, half bone. The forge stood at its center, nestled into the earth like a wound refusing to close. Its once shining obelisks were cracked and pulsing with tainted ether. The glow wasn't golden. It was purple. Curve purple. The team disembarked. Dust kicked up around them, laced with magnetized particles. Elara reached into her satchel and retrieved a fragment of the echo crystal she'd found after Fort Null. As they neared the forge, it began to vibrate, faintly at first, then violently. "She's close," Elara said. "Or something wearing her voice is." They approached in silence. That's when Orion stopped mid-step. Optics narrowed. There, on the edge of the forge spire, something's watching. A shape moved in the shadows, a robe, a whisper, and then it vanished into the darkness below. Elara's voice dropped. "Please, don't say it's him." CryptoKnight drew his blade. "I never believed he died," he said coldly. "Thalor isn't the kind that stays buried." A gust of wind swept across the ridge, and from the depths of the forge came a low, dissonant sound, like a voice trying to speak in two frequencies at once. Something was awake. Something remembered them. Chapter 3. Through the Dustlands. They descended into the crater in silence, each step drawing them closer to the dormant heart of the forge, and whatever lay beneath it. The terrain grew more twisted the deeper they went. Metal and stone had fused unnaturally, as if time itself had melted the world into something raw and broken. Lightning arced between the jagged remains of old Synthari pylons. A low hum vibrated through the soles of their boots, like a heartbeat trapped beneath the earth. CryptoKnight took point, moving with the silent authority of someone who had walked into darkness before and lived to speak of it. His golden visor scanned constantly, searching for motion, for life, for traps. Orion followed, pulse rifle ready, scanning the atmospheric data with every step. But Elara lagged behind. Not out of fear, but focus. She wasn't just walking, she was listening. The ether here felt warped, not corrupted in the way the curve usually worked, twisting will, infecting minds, but more like a memory struggling to remain whole. Echoes of Evelyn flickered like sparks in the fog. Words half-formed, faces half-remembered. "It's close," she whispered. Orion slowed beside her. "You keep saying that." "Because it is. The echo. It's stronger here. There's emotion behind it. Panic. Pain." She held out the crystal. It pulsed once, then fractured in her hand. Shards scattered at her feet. No explosion. No heat. Just a sharp intake of breath. Hers, as the world flickered for a moment and Evelyn's voice burst through her mind like lightning. "I'm not gone. He's twisting me. Elara. He's inside the mesh now. I can't." Then silence. Elara stumbled. Orion caught her before she fell, but the shock in her eyes said everything. "She's not just a memory," she said. "She's trapped. And someone, something, is holding her there." A low moan rolled through the crater, inhuman, guttural, like a language spoken by a dying god. CryptoKnight looked back. Weapons out. We're not alone. From the edges of the forge, shapes emerged, humanoid but stretched, elongated, ether-burned husks. Their eyes glowed with the sickly violet light of the curve. Once workers, maybe defenders, now puppets. "They're ascended," Orion muttered. "Thalor's cult." The wraiths moved slowly, as if pulled by strings. No screams, no threats. Just eerie calm as they surrounded the trio in a wide circle. Elara drew her blade. "I hate it when they're quiet." And then the forge groaned, its massive gates cracking open. A figure stepped through, cloaked, hooded, gliding an inch above the ground. Thalor. But not the Thalor they had known. This version was less man, more manifestation, his body wrapped in rotting silks, face partially dissolved into a mesh of metal and ether. His voice echoed from 3 mouths at once, only one of them his. "Back again, little knight?" "You sealed a corpse," CryptoKnight replied. "I see the rot remains." Thalor smiled with a mouth that didn't belong to him. "You sealed my echo, not my essence." Then he raised both hands, and the Ascended surged forward. Chapter 4. The Soulweaver Reborn. They fought in the open mouth of the forge as the sky above them darkened. The Ascended swarmed like insects, silent, relentless, their limbs moving with unnatural precision. Elara ducked under a jagged blade, rolled across scorched concrete, and came up firing her pulse revolver. Ether bursts ripped through the nearest husk, but it didn't scream. None of them did. Orion held the line at her side, alternating between plasma fire and brutal melee strikes. "They're not attacking like soldiers," he muttered. "They're sinking, mesh-controlled." "Then hit them harder," Elara growled, slamming an EMP disc into the ground. Across the field, CryptoKnight moved like a storm incarnate. His golden blade swept through corrupted flesh and fractal armor alike. With each strike, a flare of golden ether pulsed from his armor, briefly pushing the swarm back. But it was Thalor who held the center. He hovered above the battlefield, arms outstretched, absorbing the ambient ether like a god drawing breath. His voice didn't echo from his throat. It erupted from the mesh itself. "This forge was never yours, Knight. It was built to bind ether, but I have unbound it." His body pulsed with purple light. Tendrils of raw, unstable ether lashed out from his spine, tearing through the air like whips. One lashed across CryptoKnight's shoulder, sending him crashing into the cracked hull of an ancient Synthari generator. Elara saw him fall. Her heart lurched, but Thalor was already descending toward her. "You carry her spark," he said, drifting closer. "Evelyn's ghost clings to your skin. You think that's love? It's design. She made you a thread. And I—" He stopped inches from her, head tilting sideways with an unnatural twitch. "I am the blade that severs threads." Elara raised her weapon, but it exploded in her hand, disintegrated by a pulse of dark ether. She was defenseless. Then the air split with a deafening crack. Gold and fire. CryptoKnight rose from the rubble, golden energy coursing through the veins of his armor, his sword ablaze with righteous fury. "No more sermons," he said. "Then listen to prophecy," Thalor hissed. "I write my own." The two collided in mid-air. The force of their clash cracked the forge's foundation. Thalor screamed, not in pain, but in exultation, and lashed out with a spear of woven mesh. CryptoKnight blocked it, then drove his blade deep into Thalor's chest. Ether erupted, purple against gold. But Thalor didn't fall. Instead, he split apart, his body fragmenting into 3 separate wraiths, each murmuring a different phrase. "You failed her. You will fail again. The curve bends all things." CryptoKnight fell to one knee. Elara's voice cut through the chaos. "He's trying to fracture your mind. Focus!" The golden lines across his armor brightened. With a roar, he reassembled himself, his will overwhelming the fractures, and slashed through all 3 echoes at once. They howled and reformed into one. Thalor, kneeling, flickering. He was not destroyed, but he was vulnerable. CryptoKnight stood over him, blade raised. "You don't die, Thalor. You corrupt, so I won't kill you." He drove the sword into the forge's ether core behind Thalor, channeling golden energy into the structure. A seal activated, ancient Synthari glyphs spinning around them. "I bind you," he whispered, "to this place, to this moment, until the mesh forgets your name." Thalor's scream was not his own. It was everyone he had consumed. And then he was gone, bound in light. Chapter 5. Cleansing Flame. The forge fell silent. No howling wind, no chanting from the ascended. Just stillness, like the world had stopped to breathe. The ether core pulsed with blinding golden light, washing over the scorched battlefield. The surviving ascended dropped their weapons and crumpled to the ground. Not dead, but deactivated. Whatever fragment of Thalor's will had driven them was now sealed, trapped in the weave of the forge's heart. Elara stood slowly, blinking through the glow. Her skin prickled. The crystal fragments in her pocket vibrated with renewed energy, singing in harmony with the seal. Evelyn's echo wasn't just nearby anymore. It was active. The forge hadn't just been corrupted. It had become a prison. And somewhere deep within it, part of Evelyn had survived. Orion walked up behind her. "The corruption's gone. System readings are clean. But—" He trailed off, scanning the rebuilt core. "Something else is broadcasting now. A signal. But not from the curve." Elara took a slow breath. "It's her. I felt it when the seal activated. She's trying to break through, one layer at a time." CryptoKnight approached them, his armor dimming now that the golden flare had faded. His voice was quieter than before, tired but calm. "Elara, you said this forge was a lure." She nodded. "And a memory vault. Evelyn encoded parts of herself in high ether zones. This might be the largest one yet." He reached into his cloak and pulled out the blade, now dark and inert, its purpose fulfilled. "Then this isn't just a victory. It's a message." He looked toward the sky, dusk bleeding into night. "We hold the line. We reclaim the light." Elara turned away from them, walking slowly toward the forge's sealed inner sanctum. She knelt beside a control panel, one hand resting on the still warm surface. And then, a pulse. From deep within the core, her mesh implant lit up, bright enough to sear her mind. "Elara, not much time. Find me. Find the thread." She gasped, clutching her head. Orion was at her side instantly. "What did she say?" Elara opened her eyes, and this time they weren't angry or lost. They were clear. "She's alive, somewhere in the mesh. She's still fighting." Chapter 6. A Beacon Reborn. The forge thrummed with fresh life. Golden ether surged through the structure like blood rediscovered in ancient veins. Synthari machinery awakened, glowing with restored purpose. Rot and corruption peeled away from its walls, as if the forge itself had waited centuries to remember what it once was. Above them, a tower long dormant flared to life, emitting a radiant beacon that pierced the amber clouds above the Dustlands. From the skies of Infinion to the outposts at the edge of the mesh, it was seen. And it said one thing: the Knights still stand. At the forge's apex, CryptoKnight stood with Elara and Orion, watching the light arc across the sky. "We've done more than reclaim it," Orion said. "We've reignited a symbol. Others will see it. Others will come." CryptoKnight nodded but said nothing. Elara's eyes remained fixed on the rising beacon. She held the largest shard of the echo crystal in her hand now, warm to the touch, humming with residual data. "You saw her," Orion said gently. "I heard her," she corrected. "And I think she's been guiding me from the beginning. Not directly. More like a thread pulling through static." CryptoKnight turned. Are you sure it's Evelyn? Not the curve mimicking her? I'd know if it was the curve, Elara said. This wasn't manipulation. It was memory. Real. Painful. Hers. A pause. Then, more softly. She's calling me. As the three descended the platform, a final gust of warm wind swept through the open corridor. The golden beacon reflected in the shards of Elara's broken crystal, casting prismatic patterns across the stone. She stopped at the base of the tower and placed one shard into a small alcove near the sealed mesh interface. It clicked into place, like it was always meant to be there. The forge responded, not with words, but with a low, melodic tone. A voice fragment whispered through the system, barely audible, but unmistakable. You're almost there. Elara stepped back, stunned. Her throat tightened. CryptoKnight didn't speak, but placed a firm hand on her shoulder. Then we keep moving, he said. She nodded. They turned from the forge and walked back into the night, the beacon still blazing behind them, a symbol of reclaimed hope. But far below the earth, in the roots of the mesh, something else stirred, and watched, and waited. Bonus scene. After the beacon. The forge's light still burned in the sky, but far away, deep beneath the layers of the mesh, beyond where light can reach, another fire stirred. The chamber was jagged and shifting, a temple of decay and rhythm stitched together from the ruins of corrupted nodes and forgotten minds. Purple light seeped from every crack, casting long shadows that moved even when he did not. Dark Maga knelt, alone, arms spread wide beneath the spinning sigil of the curve. He had not spoken in hours. He hadn't needed to. The voices had been enough. He humiliated you. He stood above you and spared your life. You were less. Maga's fingers flexed over the ground. The metal cracked beneath his grip. His eyes pulsed erratically, shifting between focus and fury. I was supposed to be his shadow, he whispered, his fear, and he treated me like memory. He stood, slowly, deliberately. The dark ether around him coiled like smoke, responding to his rage. He doesn't understand what I've become. From the air above, a new presence rippled through the room, not a voice, but a sensation. Cold, sharp, endless. CryptoKnight. The curve itself. He will, but not yet. Maga bowed his head, trembling. Why wait? Give him to me. I won't fail. The answer was quiet, final. You already have. The sigil above flared. Maga's hands curled into fists, blood and ether dripping between armored plates. Then make me more. Strip what's left of who I was. Turn me into what he fears. I don't want his mercy again. I want his surrender. The darkness swallowed the chamber whole, and somewhere above, the golden beacon still burned. For now.